Hello. Assalamu alaikum. So just a quick announcement. If somebody has lost their cap, we found a Jinnah cap, and please claim it at the registration area. Jazakallah.
Recitation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We begin the third session of the Quran and Science Symposium. I'll request tilawat by Omer Mallhi Sahib.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The similitude of His light is as a lustrous niche, wherein is a lamp. The lamp is in the glass. The glass is as it were a glittering star. It is lit from a blessed tree, an olive, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would well nigh glow forth even though fire touched it not. Light upon light. Allah guides to His light whomsoever He will, and Allah sets forth parables to men, and Allah knows all things full well. This light is now lit in houses with regard to which Allah has ordained that they will be exalted, and that His name be remembered in them. Therein is He glorified in the mornings and the evenings.
So the chair of the session, Nasim Rehmatullah Sahib, requests that Dr. Nusrat Sharif Sahiba can introduce the speakers, the next few speakers, the next three speakers. I think we're not receiving audio from the ladies' side.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu and Jazakallah. We are welcome to the final session of the Holy Quran and Science Symposium under the theme of medical wisdom hidden in the Holy Quran. And this session will explore the intersection of Quranic verses that guide us into the recent medical technology and treatments. And I'll be co-moderating this session. To begin with, we have three speakers from the Lashna side, and I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Hanna Zafar. And Dr. Hanna Zafar received her BA from the University of Pennsylvania in biological basis of behavior. Fun fact, she did bench work with Dr. Shanaz during that time. And we all heard Dr. Shanaz this morning moderating the Quran and Science sessions. She is a Delta Omega Honor Public Health Society graduate from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, where she received her master's in health science, focusing in health policy. She then went on to receive her MD from Thomas Jefferson Medical College, where she is an Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Medical Society graduate. She completed her residency in diagnostic radiology at the University of Pennsylvania, where she also completed her fellowship in abdominal imaging. Currently, she is an associate professor of radiology and the vice chair of quality in the Department of Radiology at the University of Pennsylvania. Her expertise in outcomes research provides a unique knowledge base to identify and study gaps at the intersection of clinical medicine and radiology care systems. She is looking forward to sharing her experience in teams-based change management. We're working across 6 hospitals and over a dozen private practices. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Hanna Zafar to the panel. The title of her presentation today is Mutual Consultation in Quality Improvement.
Jazakallah for that introduction, and Jazakallah to the conference organizers for giving me this opportunity to share one of my passions with you, and Jazakallah to all of you for staying with me here in your postprandial state, where your blood is flowing in the wrong direction. Hopefully it will go back up into your brain shortly. I do have a learning objective for this brief 12 minutes that I'm speaking to you. Hopefully by the end of this all, you will be able to give 2 practical concepts that are cited in Surah Al-Imran, different verses, that talk about how to conduct effective team-based work. Now, I'm talking to you about this from quality improvement, and I will say to you that the concepts I'm discussing are generalizable regardless of what field you're in, whether you're an architect, an engineer, a doctor, a bench researcher. I hope that you will take something away from this, because that is my hope. I will start off by saying the word shura I have heard since I was a child. I think most of us have. Everybody talks about shura, and you think you understand what shura is. And it really wasn't until I started doing work as a vice chair in quality that I started to appreciate the science behind this concept that the Quran laid out, hundreds of years ago, and the power and the impact of mutual consultation and why it's so important to doing effective teams-based work. So I've put up a verse here, again, from Surah Al-Imran, verse 160. And it is by the great mercy of Allah that thou art kind towards them. And if thou had been rough and hard-hearted, they would surely have dispersed from around thee. So pardon them and ask forgiveness for them, and consult them in matters of administration. And when thou art determined, then put thy trust in Allah. Surely Allah loves those who put their trust in him. And a lot of my talk is going to go around this verse, or is going to help us to dig a little deeper, I should say, into this verse. So if you want to pull back and think about what is shura, what is this concept of mutual consultation? It is about developing a systematic approach to how we collaborate and we connect across large teams of people, not an echo chamber, diverse teams of people, drawing from stakeholders who are involved with every part of the work that we do, again, whatever field that you are in. So what is quality improvement? I'm coming to you as the vice chair of quality, so that's the lens through which I'm going to frame this. It's a scientific approach towards understanding how we can enhance and improve processes and outcomes. Whatever your process, whatever your workflow, whatever your outcome in your field, again, I'm hoping you can bring something away from this talk. It's predicated on 3 pillars. There's a systematic approach. So we have tools, validated scientific tools that we use, and we do them in rapid bursts. Unlike the bench work that I did, which was a little bit more slow and methodical, we use rapid fires. It's data-driven. So again, we're drawing on data that we collect in order to really understand a problem before we start to solve it. And it's team-based. We're drawing on stakeholders from across all of the different aspects of the work that we are involved in. Again, not just a small cabal of people up at the top. We want a really grassroots, broad representation. I also want to say that quality improvement is really nascent when it comes to healthcare, the application of it, I should say, in healthcare. It has its historical roots in engineering. So power plants, you can imagine the stakes are really high. If a nuclear reactor doesn't work. Aviation, preventing plane crashes. The automotive industry. It seems simple putting a car together, but man, if you don't get it right, there are really bad repercussions to what can happen. So it's that same idea that can be applied across industries. You might be thinking, what is an example of a quality improvement project? So I've put up a couple here just to help you sort of, hopefully there's something on this slide that speaks to whatever field you're in within healthcare. So reducing unnecessary cesarean section deliveries if you happen to be a gynecologist. If you're a pharmacologist, preventing common adverse drug reactions in the inpatient setting, the outpatient setting, whatever it is. So I'm going to share with you today two of my observations about why I think team-based work is so challenging in healthcare. First, I don't think we fully engage the emotional and collective intelligence of the teams of people that we work with. And number two, we don't follow a systematic approach. We're humans, and we tend to have this very emotional reaction when we have to solve a problem. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about each one of those. So first, why are we not engaging the full emotional and collective intelligence of our teams? I think first I have to define what is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability of an individual to understand and manage your own feelings and to influence and understand the emotions of people around you. So I'll give you a practical example. If you are a student here at this conference and you want to meet somebody, you want to use your body language in a way that makes it inviting for other people to talk to you. You want to smile. You don't want to have your arms crossed. You want to put your arms down to your side. And when you speak to somebody, you want to make eye contact with them. This is all the things we teach our kids, right? But that's what EQ is. That's part of understanding EQ. Collective intelligence may be a new term for a lot of people in the room. I think some people have probably heard of EQ before. I find this topic fascinating. It's the ability of a group of people to make better decisions together than they would as individuals. And there's a whole science behind this. So you might think, man, if I was on a team with Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein, we would have the best collective intelligence. And it turns out that actually, no, you wouldn't. Because collective intelligence is not predicated on the IQ of individual team members. It's about how everybody in the team works together. So it's not the smartest people in the team, it's how smart does the team function. So I put up, Dr. Anita Woolley has done amazing research in this field, and I put up a reference here that you can look up. The way I would put this is, yes, Albert Einstein and Dr. Stephen Hawking could have amazing collective intelligence in their team if their team had good social sensitivity. So team members had good EQ. They were reading each other's body language. They were trying to understand one another. They were taking a quality and conversational turn-taking. You know, I have to sit down. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a little lightheaded. Is that okay? I apologize. I'm feeling lightheaded for some reason. I'm going to switch over to, yeah.
Do you want to walk in and do some?
Okay, I think just as long as
Just a little bit of few minutes. The speaker has to catch her breath. Jazakallah for your patience.
Thank you. All right, much better. Jazakallah, everyone. Thank you for that. I guess I'm the one who should be saying I'm having problems postprandial. All my blood was flowing in the wrong direction. Okay, back with you now. So going back to our team, it turns out that Yes, Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking could be in a group with amazing collective intelligence if that group had good social sensitivity. So they were individual team members were able to take their cues from one another and read each other's body language, understand what the other person was trying to say, both indirectly and directly. If they were good at taking a quality of conversational turn taking. So Stephen and Albert Einstein were not taking up all the oxygen in the room. They were inviting other people in the group, right, to have an ability to share their ideas. So everyone in the room is equal. And interestingly, just as an aside, the third bullet point, if they had 2 female members on their team, that would also improve their collective intelligence. And you can read more about that in the article. So coming back to this idea of shura, I broke this verse up into 2 parts deliberately because I think the first part really touches on EQ. I've highlighted the words kindness, pardoning, and forgiveness. That has a lot to do with EQ, right? That has to do with how we relate to other people, how we are understanding our emotions and understanding their emotions. And then the second part, we've talked about this concept of consultation, again, mutual consultation. And that's really what collective intelligence is about. How we do that mutual consultation in a way that allows us to really collaborate and to connect with one another. This slide, it's interesting. This is drawn from work from an emergency department physician in Florida by the name of Mark Jabin. I think we all know that we own what we create. We've known this since we were children. We take a lot of pride in the things that we create, that we produce ourselves. And yet, how many people in the room have been in a scenario where you're in a work environment and there's a small group of people at the top who make a decision and they're like, this is the best decision, and they push it all the way down to everybody at the bottom. And then they tell you, oh yeah, you guys have to buy in now. Right? Like, has anybody been in that scenario? Yes, I have. Yeah, there are some hands up here. I'm sure there are hands up in the so examples of this. You're a physician and you're told you need to see 20 more patients a week. Or you're a researcher, you have to bring in $200,000 more of grant funding this year, right? I mean, you can think of lots of different examples. And that's exactly what we shouldn't do, but oftentimes we do because we think, oh, it's more efficient. We're saving time. We understand what the problem is. What we really need is investors up at the top. And this is what shura is about. This is what mutual consultation is about, right? We want to engage people up at the beginning so that they understand what they should be doing, so that they can co-create, right? Co-design what that solution would be. And then you have people who really are invested in making that change happen. The second reason why teams-based work is so hard in healthcare is that we don't follow a systematic approach. We don't follow the science. We tend to get very emotional. This is a verse from Surah Al-Imran that we heard multiple times earlier today. And I think what this highlights is, again, this idea that Allah has deliberately created, purposefully created systems that we should follow as people. There's a reason why we do well with checklists, right? There's a reason why you need to follow a certain methodology. Why do we have a methodology section in research papers? Because you want to explain to people what your system was. This is an example of a tool, a rubric that I use very commonly in my QI work. It's called an A3. It was developed by Toyota. And the reason it's called an A3 is because it relates to the size of the paper. It's an 11 by 17 inch piece of paper that lays out the entire story. And the way that you use this is you start on the left-hand side of the page and you gather all of your data. And it takes time. It takes time to gather this data. Then you want to move over to the other side and you want to actually start developing your interventions, your countermeasures, right? But you have to first, what we tend to do is you come into a group project and you say, I understand what the problem is. We don't, the global village project that was given yesterday, I understand what the problem is. We need to develop a well and we need to put in hydraulics, state-of-the-art hydraulics. But what you haven't done is you haven't actually gone over to the right side. You haven't collected your data. You haven't defined the problem. You haven't engaged the stakeholders across the entire process to make sure you really understand the problem. That's a lot of what I do in my work, and it takes time. And again, this is a methodology you can use whatever field you're in. We have a number of tools. I've put them up here just as a teaser. Fishbone analysis, you guys have probably seen that. Process maps, Pareto charts. You want to do all that work over and over again with your data so that you can understand what the root cause is, the real root cause. What is your real problem? What is a feasible goal, a smart goal that you can achieve for your project before you start to put money into, and I say money, but before you put time and energy and effort into those interventions. So in a nutshell, the A3, the reason I love it so much is it tells a standardized story. Anybody can pick up that A3 and automatically they can understand what is the problem they're solving? What did the data show? What are they going to do? I also enjoy quality improvement work. Oh, I'm sorry, this slide got cut off. But the other thing that's important about QI work to understand is that we don't blame individuals. It's not shame and blame. It's about systems. A system has failed, and that's where the problem comes in. So what two practical concepts do I hope that you've taken away from this lecture from Surah Al-Imran? It is that effective team-based quality work draws on individual and group intelligence, EQ, and collective intelligence using a systematic approach. Jazakallah, and thank you also for your patience with my postprandial lightheadedness. All right.
Jazakallah, Wasinul Jaza. That was a brilliant talk and gives us insights into how the core guidance comes from the Holy Quran, from the verses you recited about streamlining, process improvement, and team collaboration. Our next speaker is Dr. Aisha Siddiqa Saiba, and she'll be talking on the topic of the divine signature and the scientific story of human uniqueness. Dr. Aisha Siddiqa is an associate professor and the chair of the Institutional Review Board at HCA Healthcare. Dr. Siddiqa earned her master's degree in microbiology in Pakistan before moving to the United Kingdom to complete a Ph.D. in molecular biology. She then moved to the United States to pursue a postdoctoral fellowship in immunology at Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. Dr. Aisha Siddiqa is currently involved in teaching and overseeing the ethical review of Doctor of Nursing Practice and faculty research, continuing her long-standing commitment to advancing both scientific research and the next generation of healthcare professionals. With that, I would welcome Dr. Aisha Siddiqa to the panel today.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm holding this water bottle. If every one of you touch it, we all can be identified by our fingerprints. So fingerprints are unique, even in identical twins. In next 12 minutes or so, I want to discuss 3 questions. Why Allah Ta'ala has mentioned fingerprints in Quran, how the fingerprint science and genetics showing the uniqueness of human being develop. And the third question is, what signs Allah Ta'ala has promised to show us in science. So, Quran is a book of guidance, and it answers our theological questions. For example, why should we prepare for the day of judgment when we are going to decompose after death? So Allah Ta'ala is answering this question and saying, does the human being think that we will not gather his bones? Yes, indeed, we are able to make his fingertips perfect. Allah Ta'ala says, yes, indeed, we are able to make his fingertips perfect. So why Allah Ta'ala has mentioned fingertips? Because fingertips are the ultimate symbol of uniqueness, as well as showing that Allah Ta'ala can create and recreate with perfect precision. This verse shows us two things, that Allah Ta'ala is going to create us again, and we will be accountable. Now I want to talk about a misconception that people have no idea about the fingerprints before they were mentioned in Quran. In fact, fingerprints were used in ancient time to seal the contract, because we find these clay tablets with finger impression. The uniqueness of fingerprints were first mentioned by Rashiduddin Hamdani, a Persian physician. And he talked about it in his book, Jami'ul Tawarikh. And then in modern era, the science of fingerprint developed. In British India, Qazi Azizul Haq developed the mathematical formula to analyze fingerprints, which is still used. And by the way, British government gave him 500 rupees for his work. William Herschel developed the system to use fingerprint for identification. And then Francis Galton provided the evidence that the fingerprints are unique and permanent. And interestingly, Francis Galton was Charles Darwin's cousin. Briefly, let's look at the way fingerprints are developed in fetal stage. Around week 10, before week 10, we have these temporary swellings on our fingers, palm, and sole. And then around week 10, we see that there are two layers of skin. The epidermis is the top layer and the dermis is the bottom layer. And in between, part of the epidermis is a layer of cells called basal cells, which are shown in purple color. These basal cells developed very fast, and they have to accommodate themselves somewhere, so they go up and down, as you can see at the bottom image, not the bottom image, the first image, but at the bottom. And these valleys and ridges will become permanent and will make our fingerprints. Gradually, the swelling will disappear, and we will be having these fingerprints that are permanent. When we look at the fingerprint patterns, they are determined by genetics. So there are three main patterns, but they are affected by the conditions in the uterus of mother, like how the fetus is moving, or what's the amniotic fluid pressure, and things like that. That is why even the identical twins have different fingerprints. They have unique fingerprints. We know that fingerprints are used in forensic, for identification, things like that. You all, I'm sure, using fingerprints to open your phone or things like that. Fingerprints are not the only way to show the uniqueness of human being. Genetics also show that we are unique. 99% of our DNA is identical. So DNA is made up of 4 nucleotides, which are the building blocks, and there is a particular sequence of those building blocks or 4 nucleotides. So 99.9% of the sequence are the same in all of us. Only 0.1% are different. And usually that difference is in the single nucleotide. So we call it SNP, or single nucleotide polymorphism, and scientists can make a genetic makeup of every individual with SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphism. And again, these are used in paternity test, in forensic and medical genetics, and there are many applications. The third question is really challenging. Science is provisional. It's work in progress. What we know today can change tomorrow by more convincing evidence. So science is not a permanent thing. So how can we use science to show the signs in Quran, show the signs of Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala is eternal truth. So Quran guides us, how can we see the signs of Allah Ta'ala in science? So Allah Ta'ala is saying, He who created 7 heavens in layers, you do not see any inconsistency in the creation of the most merciful. So look again. Do you see any flaw? Then look again. And yet, your sight will return to you humbled and exhausted. What it is saying, that when you do science, you will see consistent laws. And you don't see these laws are changing. For example, I'm a life science person. I use the same chemistry and physics law that a rocket scientist used or a computer scientist used. The laws don't change when we study physiology or anatomy. Hazrat Masih Maud has extended this understanding, telling us that there is no event in the universe that is outside the laws of nature. What is called a miracle is only an expression of hidden laws not yet understood by human. So another sign we see is precision and balance. The fact that scientific concept can be expressed in mathematical equation and formula tells you that Allah Ta'ala's creations are balanced, precise, and this is not only recognized by Muslims, even non-Muslim recognize that there is a connectedness in Allah Ta'ala's creation, consistent laws, precision, and balance, all pointing to one God. So Allah Ta'ala says, indeed, we have created all things according to the precise measure. And it's so convincing that non-Muslim scientists can also recognize this precision. The last sign that we all can see, Allah Ta'ala says, and He has subjected to you whatever is in the heaven and whatever is on earth, all from Him. Indeed, in that are signs for people who give thought. So Allah Ta'ala is saying that through scientific exploration, Allah will tasheer this knowledge to benefit for humankind. So tasheer means making things subservient. So Allah Ta'ala has actually made science subservient. We can use it to develop technology or use it in the engineering for the benefit of humankind. And there are a few icons showing you where we can use genetics and fingerprint, such as paternity test, things like that. Jazakallah for listening. And I just want to let you know that this is my humble understanding, and I am here to learn from all of you. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Aisha, and Jazakallah for discussing that uniqueness of fingerprints. It's actually fascinating to see how the smallest details of the human body point to a profound questions on identity and individuality. Our next speaker is Dr. Nadia Malik, and Dr. Nadia Malik will be talking on the title of We Will Show Them Our Science, Biological Sonar to Medical Imaging. Dr. Nadia Malik is a senior partner at the Permanente Medical Group in California. She graduated from Rawalpindi Medical College in Pakistan and went on to complete her residency in nuclear medicine at University of California, Davis. She has a fellowship in cardiac computer angiography from University of California, Los Angeles, and is a board certified in nuclear medicine by the American Board of Nuclear Medicine. Over the course of her career, she has mentored and trained many nurses and physicians in running a nuclear stress lab. In her role as a radiation safety officer and the chair of the Radiation Safety Committee, she has implemented a radiation safety program in 2 major hospitals and supervises radiation safety policies and procedures for hundreds of staff, physicians, and patients on an ongoing basis. Dr. Nadia is passionate about volunteering for medical missions through Humanity First, USA, and has led missions to Guatemala. She had the privilege of volunteering in disaster relief efforts in Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Nadia Malik as our next speaker.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakallah, Dr. Nusrat, for the kind introduction. Respected and esteemed audience, just as the esteemed speakers before me have beautifully highlighted the harmony between scientific discovery and the teachings of the Holy Quran, I am humbled to continue that conversation. Scientific innovation not only deepens our understanding of the natural world, but it also reveals the remarkable intricacies and capabilities within Allah's creation, as described in the Holy Quran. Today, I will focus specifically on advancements in medical imaging, particularly the modality of ultrasound. I will humbly try to explain how this technology is rooted in the same fundamental acoustic principles found in nature, principles demonstrated by creatures such as bats and dolphins. Echolocation, a natural phenomenon, showcases sophisticated mechanisms for perceiving what lies beyond the limit of human vision. And by employing these systems, science of ultrasound technology has transformed natural principles into clinical tools. In this way, modern medical imaging can be viewed as part of a broader pattern. Observing the natural world inspires scientific and medical innovation, echoing themes found in nature and referenced throughout the teachings of the Holy Quran. Human vision is limited to a narrow band of electromagnetic spectrum, yet the natural world contains systems that perceive far beyond what the eye can register. The Quranic verse, we will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves, verse 41, verse 53, chapter 41, verse 53, offers a profound lens through which these scientific realities can be contemplated. The phrase, our signs in the horizons, invites reflection on the extraordinary sensory mechanisms embedded throughout creation. Among these are the acoustic navigation systems of bats and dolphins, which emit and interpret high-frequency sound waves to construct precise spatial awareness in environments where vision is ineffective. These examples illustrate that perception in creation is multidimensional, extending well beyond sight. Technologies such as ultrasound and echocardiography apply the same acoustic principles, transmitting sound waves, receiving echoes, and reconstructing these signals into visual images with remarkable clarity. In this way, modern imaging does not invent new laws. It utilizes the principles already present in the natural order. The verse also speaks to signs within themselves, pointing to the human capacity for reasoning, discovery, and technological advancement. Our ability to observe, analyze, and translate natural laws into medical tools reflects an inner dimension of understanding granted only to humankind. It is through this internal faculty that scientific progress, including ultrasound imaging, emerges. Taken together, the verse outlines a continuum. Signs in the external world invite observation. Signs within ourselves enable comprehension, and the union of both lead to meaningful innovation and discovery. Thus, advancement in ultrasound imaging can be viewed as uncovering the applying principles that have always existed, science placed in creation and made accessible through scientific inquiry. Another Quranic verse that resonates with scientific and radiological advancement describes Allah as knower of the unseen and the seen, chapter 59, verse 23. Echolocation in nature and ultrasound in medical imaging exemplifies how the unseen can be made perceptible and seen through the indirect signals and perceptions. This highlights that scientific discovery is not the creation of new truths, but rather the progressive unveiling of Allah's sign. Echolocation in nature exemplified in both bats and dolphins, as I previously stated, each operating in very different environments, yet using the same fundamental principle. Dolphins use an advanced form of echolocation to navigate their environment. They emit high-frequency acoustic pulses in the range of 40 to 150 kilohertz into the water, and these sound waves bounce off surrounding objects and structures. The returning echoes are processed by the brain to reconstruct a detailed spatial image of the surroundings. Similarly, bats use echolocation by emitting high-frequency ultrasonic pulses in the range of 20 to 200 kilohertz, far beyond human hearing. These sound bursts travel through the air, reflect off even the smallest objects, and return as echoes with remarkable speed within milliseconds. The bat's brain interprets these echoes to construct a high-resolution, three-dimensional map of the surroundings in real time. Together, these systems illustrate a powerful principle. Acoustic signaling can effectively replace vision, enabling movement and navigation through precise environmental mapping through sound waves. When compared, echolocation is the foundation of fundamental principle in ultrasound, the use of sound to perceive what cannot be directly seen. Using an ultrasound probe, high-frequency sound waves are transmitted into the body, and returning echoes based on difference in tissue acoustic impedance are processed and reconstructed to generate real-time images. So thus far, we have seen that laws of nature demonstrate that sound can function as a form of vision. Or in case of ultrasound technology, sound waves can be processed to create imagery which can then be analyzed by diagnostic purposes. This is not just a coincidence. It is divine design. Allah's laws of nature display engineering far beyond human invention. Our technology simply mirrors the principles already embedded in Allah's creation. Here we have a picture of an ultrasound system. And similar to echolocation, ultrasound machine operates on this same fundamental principle. The handheld device, known as the transducer, emits high-frequency sound waves into the body, similar to the nasal sac and melon in dolphins and larynx in the case of bats. And these waves encounter different levels of impedance of tissues and organs, just like echoes bouncing off the environment in case of dolphins and bats. They are reflected back to the transducer. The transducer then receives these returning signals, much like a dolphin's jaw and ears, or a bat's highly sensitive hearing apparatus detecting returning echoes. The most fascinating comparison is the processing. The ultrasound machine's computer analyzes the timing and strength of echoes to create an image on the display screen in real time, similar to a specialized region of dolphins and bats' brain that processes echoes to generate a three-dimensional map of their surroundings. Another example here is the cardiac echocardiogram being performed with concurrent EKG monitoring. The transducer probe emits high-frequency sound waves through the chest wall to acquire images of the heart. The transducer emits high-frequency sound waves in the range of 2 to 10 megahertz that reflect off cardiac structures, which can include chambers, valves, and other structures. And these signals are then processed to generate dynamic images of a beating heart on the monitor. At the same time, electrocardiogram leads on the chest wall record the electrical activity of the heart and allow synchronization of the ultrasound images with specific phases of the cardiac cycle. On the right, we have an image that illustrates a real-time abdominal ultrasound exam. And on the monitor, we see the reconstructed image allowing visualization of internal anatomy in real time. Comparing biological sonar to echolocation and ultrasound technology reinforces an important idea. The scientific discovery is not simply invention, but an ongoing process of understanding and interpreting the science embedded within the teachings of the Holy Quran and human capability to understand those teachings. This is a profound example of Quranic inspiration to scientific breakthrough. It is also interesting to note that ultrasound technology was only discovered in the early 1900s and started to be used for field of medicine around 1940s, whereas echolocation has been around for millions of years. Other radiological technologies extend this concept further. Across all imaging modalities, we rely on measurable physical signals to transform what is unseen into something visible. For example, in CT, imaging works by measuring X-ray attenuation as it passes through the body. Different tissues attenuate X-rays to different degree. As the X-ray tube rotates around the patient, powerful computers process this attenuation data, reconstructing it to create cross-sectional three-dimensional images of different parts of the body. In MRI, strong magnetic fields and radio waves allow detailed characterization. And in nuclear medicine, which is my specialty, radio tracer distribution reflects physiologic processes at a molecular level. In this imaging modality, small amounts of radio tracers are injected to visualize how organs and tissues function at a cellular level. Unlike CT and MR, which is anatomical imaging, nuclear medicine is functional imaging. Regardless of the imaging modality, the common concept is sound, energy, and signal interpretation can reveal what is hidden. Nature demonstrates the model all around us. Medicine applies it, and radiology continues to extend it. As radiology is one of the key areas of modern medical innovation and progress, especially in the last 2 to 3 decades. New techniques including MRI sequences, PET-CT, hybrid imaging, MRI. However, the natural world demonstrates a level of sophistication that far exceeds all the latest imaging capabilities. When referencing this with the Holy Quran, Surah Luqman comes to mind, verse 27, which reminds us of the vastness of divine knowledge, stating, And if all the trees on earth were pens and the ocean were ink, with 7 more oceans added to it, the words of Allah would not be exhausted. This powerful verse highlights that human knowledge is only a tiny fraction compared to the infinite knowledge of the Creator, Allah Almighty. It places scientific discovery in perspective. As we learn more about the universe, we are only uncovering a small part of the limitless science within Allah's creation. Translation from biological sonar to ultrasound imaging technology is indeed scientific breakthrough from Islamic inspiration. Jazakallah khair for your kind attention.
Jazakallah. Before the next speaker is introduced, I see a lot of you are falling asleep, so if you would stand up, take a stretch, and then sit down. It'll wake you up. Have a seat.
So our next presentation is by Arshad Khan, Ph.D. Dr. Arshad M. Khan earned his Ph.D. in neuroscience from UC Riverside in 2002 and completed postdoctoral training in neuroendocrinology and functional neuroanatomy at the University of South California. He joined the faculty at University of Texas, El Paso in 2011, where he is now a tenured professor and director of the Systems Neuroscience Laboratory. Dr. Khan's research explores how the brain controls appetite, blood sugar regulation, fear, addiction, and stress. He uses computational tools and brain atlases to map neural circuits, contributing to standardized resources for the neuroscience community. His presentation will be on scattering and coalescence, an oath, a process, and the soul across every scale.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I would like to extend my gratitude to the organizers of this fabulous meeting for the opportunity to share some of a personal journey I've taken since the year 2000, when I was a PhD student myself, seeking proof of the existence of Alamia. And so what I'm going to share with you is some stuff I've touched upon over the years, but for the last 26 years, I'm still a little stuck by how amazing my prayers were answered. Because I'm following some auspicious speakers, I can't help but reflect what Dr. Hanna Zafar said, where the inclusion of 2 females increases the collective intelligence of a group. And I'm afraid that the converse might be true, where the inclusion of a male in this group might lower the collective intelligence of the group. So I seek forgiveness for that. The topic today is scattering and coalescence. And the reason I talk about this is because of Surah Al-Zariyat, a obsession of mine now for the last 25 years or so. Surah Zariyat is chapter 51, and it is known as the scattering, and Zariyat referred to zarre, or particles. And so what I want to talk about is a little bit of some of the larger lessons I've learned studying these verses, which I continue to derive great pleasure from, and I always learn something new just about every year I've been thinking about this. So the verses are very, very interesting, and I'm showing the first 7 here that I was struck by during my itikaf reflections 26 years ago. The first 7 verses, I'll read the translation here. In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. By those that scatter with the true scattering, by those that scatter with a true scattering, then carry the load, then speed lightly along, and then distribute by command. Surely that which you are promised is true, and the judgment will surely come to pass. Now, the reason I was struck by these is I was a young student, and I would always go to the dinners of the iftar at our mosque in Los Angeles in Chino. And I was always envious when I would hear elders talk about how God has touched their lives experientially. They received revelation or prayers or answers to their prayers they would receive, and talk about all these moving stories. So I sought during the prayer in 2000 a simple prayer that I want to be able to tell that story one day. And so I get a chance to now. And so these verses are interesting to me because back then, as a neuroscientist, I was questioning God. And I was wondering whether or not he actually existed in the form of personal communication. Now, I believed in God rationally. I was a Muslim. I was practicing. I felt that there was a presence, but I never had heard directly from God. And so I prayed that, well, you know, the brain, to me, as a biased person, is an ultimate frontier in science. And we hear about cosmology and physics and the Big Bang and embryology and all these cool things in the Qur'an. And I was sure that the brain's got to be in there somewhere. But when I would go to the index of the commentaries in the books and I would find brain, there was no brain mentioned. And I was at a loss for this, and I would pray for this, an independent prayer that one day I maybe will learn a little bit of neuroscience inside the Quran Sharif. And that's what I found with these verses. So I want to draw your attention to these verses in a couple of ways. The first is, it's very interesting, the color coding I put here is deliberate because the first 5 verses, after Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, where Allah is providing his own name, verses 2 to 5 are actually an oath. They're an oath or a swearing by, and I'll talk about that. And then the promise of that oath, the fulfillment of that oath, is actually verses 6 and 7. And so verses 2 to 5 are very interesting because they're almost a riddle. Those things that scatter with a true scattering then carry the load. And in load, you can see the Arabic verse is, the word is vikran. Vikran means load, and I'll talk about that. Then speed lightly along. Faljariyate yusran. The word is yusran for ease. And then redistribute by command. Falmukassimate amran, or amar, which is distribution by command. So I'm highlighting those words, vikran, yusr, and amar, because I'm going to talk about them later. So the very first thing, though, which I was dumbstruck by, was this elegant commentary furnished by Promised Messiah Islam, literally about the very first word in verse 2, the particle vow, by. By those that scatter with a true scattering. Now, why is Al-Lamiyah starting with the word by? And what Masih al-Islam says is that by here does not mean by means of. What it means is that this is a fixed structure in the Holy Quran, where Allah Ta'ala is swearing by something that is witnessable by us, witnessable by science. And he's attesting that just as you see those things in nature, what I'm about to tell you after that, you can't see, but you need to trust me. And you can see this, for example, in Surah Shams. I have a small footnote here. By the sun, by the moon, in Surah Shams, وَالشَّمْسِ وَزُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. Allah Ta'ala is swearing over and over again by things you can see. Now, what Masih al-Islam says further, which is really cool, is that the things that Al-Lamiyah chooses at that moment in those verses to swear by, that are seen, have qualities in them that are in the unseen. And so in Surah Shams, the quality of the soul is mentioned, where you, just as you can see the light of the sun and the moon, and you can witness those illuminations, I also promise you that the thing you can't see, and you can't test with your science, by the way, at least not yet, is that there's an illumination to a soul. And so Allah Ta'ala is providing evidence from the seen world to have you understand that you need to have faith when he says that these things that are unseen also exist. So in the case of Surah Zariyat, Khalifa Masih Sani radiallahu anhu had a commentary. And the commentary was, by those that scatter with a true scattering, refer to wind. And they carry a load of moisture in the form of clouds, and then they speed lightly along to redistribute that water or moisture as rain. And what Allah Ta'ala is saying here is, just the way I can scatter particles like this, have them bear up a load and speed lightly along and redistribute them, I will be able to redistribute souls during Judgment Day. Judgment Day will come to pass. So what Masih alayhi salam says is the word by is a vow al-qasam, or it's an oath. And in the right side, you can see here that the witnessed winds, clouds, the running of those clouds, attest to the promise that the soul will be redistributed. Now, what about the last two verses? Those are the jawab al-qasam. Those are the answer to that oath. What does Allah promise about the unseen? Surely that which you are promised is true, and Judgment Day, where we actually apportion souls and distribute them in a fixed way, will come to pass. So you hold the destination first when you study these verses. This is sort of a lesson I've learned over the years. Wherever you see the word vow or a oath of al-qasam, the verses after that, which are the promise, you hold as the destination, and then go back to the verses about the scene and try to understand them. And so everything that follows, the winds, the clouds, the running ease, the apportioning by command, is the evidence offered for the Jawab al-Qasam, that the soul too will be scattered, raised, bearing its burden, brought lightly forth, and redistributed by his command. Now, why am I interested in this? Because I like riddles, and maybe I have ADHD, I don't know. But there's an obsessive kind of hyperactivity associated with trying to solve riddles. And what I find is that this process is interesting. My AI assistant helped me with this, and where it said 1 grammar, 4 beats, and I actually kind of liked that and kept it. The concepts are in these root words. Scattering, or, zariyate zarvan, bearing the load, hamilate vikran, flowing with ease, jariyate yusran, redistributing by command, falmukassimate amran. So these are all actions, a very, very specific sequence of actions. Scattering, bearing a load, flowing with ease, and redistributing by command. Now, what I like about this is that if you jump, for example, to vikran, which is the word that jumped out to me when I was praying about whether the brain's in the Qur'an in a simplistic point of view. What happened that day is I was looking through the verses and I noticed that the word load, bearing the load, caught my eye, and something told me that maybe that load means an electrical load. What if it was an electrical load? And then I sat up in my little cubicle and I went, wait a minute, there might be something here. And so what you find with vikran, if you go to the root meanings of this in the Arabic lexicon, there are a lot of wonderful roots to the Arabic, a single Arabic root. There's multiple meanings. So vikran is a burden that is born, but it's so poetic in Arabic. It's a burden born where you almost can't bear it. So, for example, a tree that is bowing under its own weight because it has so much fruit. That's also vikran. A cloud saturated with water that's about to burst is vikran. I said burst and then we lost. Oh, there we go. It's back. Burst. No, it didn't happen again. Okay. So a burden that is carried toward release. The lexicon never meant one thing, it meant saturation in a variety of different forms. So I reasoned that a simple atom, a naked atom like a sodium atom, actually has a cloud around it too, a load. where it becomes charged like an ion. Could that also mean an electrical charge in the brain, an ion? And what you find is that you do see this. I have 1 minute, wow, okay. So Yusran and this load actually happen during an action potential. When you look at the resting phase, you see on the left side there's lots of sodium on the outside of the cell, lots of potassium on the inside, and you're at rest. But as soon as you have a channel open in the membrane, the sodium will rush down its concentration gradient like ink in a tank that will diffuse. No force is required for diffusion. It just happens with ease. And this is what Allah Ta'ala has promised, that you take this load and make it speed lightly along the membrane, and it'll redistribute by command to form an action potential. So this blew my mind, because this is exactly the scientific sequence of events that have been discovered for the formation of an action potential. You have scattered particles that become ionic, they bear a load, they speed lightly along a membrane, and redistribute by command. So Amer, the redistribution by command, is also interesting, because Masih al-Islam has talked about how Amer is kun fayakun. It happens or it doesn't happen. And an action potential, which is shown on the right side in yellow, on the right of the vertical dotted line, is an electrical impulse that will either happen or not if it gets to minus 55 millivolts there in this example, which is a threshold. Prior to that, creation of Alamiya does not happen all or none, but it can happen in stages. And it turns out in neuroscience, there's lots of different potentials on the left side that happen in stages. They go up, down, they self-correct, never reach threshold. And those are graded synaptic potentials, which represent a graded creation of Hulk. And once there is a decision made, and then there is a law of an action potential, it's all or none. And that's Amer. It's very much like Congress and lobbyists making all kinds of influential laws, but it never reaches threshold. And then the president signs an executive order, and it's Amer. So there is a principle of deliberation, we talked about shura, that happens in stages, and then the Khalifa decides. So Khalq and Amer. This is embedded in our electrical impulses. So what's interesting to me is I had prayed to Lamia about something about the nervous system, and what I got was that this is a process that is scale invariant. At a cell in an axon, you can get this. You can get it in the blood where it carries oxygen, speeds lightly along, and redistributes it. And the sky with the clouds, and the cosmos with the fundamental forces. So regardless of the scale, this process that Alamiya swears by is evident in the universe. And so the final conclusion is that he swore by the scattering, the bearing, the ease, and the redistribution. And our observations confirm that he keeps that grammar in nature everywhere we look. So when he swears the soul will follow the same arc, the whole observable universe has already testified that he means it when he promises that. Jazakallah.
So the next item on the agenda is panel Q&A. So now if there are any questions that anyone has for any of the panelists about their presentations, then they can ask them now.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Manzoor Rahman. My question is regarding that subject of human uniqueness. And I was just wondering that, we heard very enlightening presentation on the fingertips and those lines. But I was wondering, what about the lines on the palm? And they are also seem to be unique, because the palm reader, that's why they read. And so I was just wondering, I mean, is there any research kind of on the lines on the palms?
Honestly, I have no idea that how it seems like even the palm lines are kind of unique, but I don't know what they mean except the uniqueness. Whether they tell you your fate or anything, I'm not sure.
Okay, any other questions from the men's side? Yes, we have one question.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me? Yes. There are billions and billions of people that have come and gone and are present. What is it that makes those fingerprints unique in each individual? Or are there some duplication of those fingerprints somewhere? That'll be interesting to know.
So as I explained that the three main patterns are determined by genetics, then the conditions in the womb are different for every individual. And they are, the main pattern will be affected by the conditions. For example, how the fetus is moving, what's the pressure of amniotic fluid, and many other factors. So because no two fetuses have exactly the same conditions, not even the identical twins, that's why the influence of the womb condition or the uterus condition will be different, and we will have a unique pattern. Did I answer your question?
Okay, so there's no other questions from the men's side? Okay, I think there's a follow-up question. Jay, please at the microphone.
Well, thank you for answering. The question is, or my real question or curiosity is that out of these billions of and more of the fingerprints, are they sometime duplicated, or Allah Ta'ala creates unique fingerprints for every individual? As we see, they're used for identification, they're used for everyday life, but maybe 100 years or something, so often there's a recycling of those, or they are always unique from individual to individual?
They are always unique, and if you look at the genetic diversity, one couple can have, I mean, obviously we don't have millions of children from one couple, but if it was possible, one couple can have the genetic diversity so much that it will exceed the number of people ever lived. So you see that how not even the two siblings have the same genetics? What I'm trying to show you or to tell you that Allah Ta'ala has made this sexual reproduction from one male and female, combining the genetics in such a way that you can produce more genetic diversity than the number of people ever lived on this planet. Did I answer your question?
Not really, but thank you.
So what I'm trying to say, genetic diversity is vast. Even the identical twins, although the genetic makeup is more or less same, but there is mutation, meaning there are still some minor differences. So even the identical twins, which are basically splitting from the same zygote, you can say, still have genetic diversity because there are some mutations. Did I answer your question?
Jazakallah. I'll now pass it to Nusrat Sharif Saiba, our moderator on the ladies' side, for questions from the ladies.
Ji, Jazakallah, we have two questions from the ladies, and they'll go ahead now.
Assalamu alaikum. I had a question for Dr. Arshad Khan, just about any reading recommendations that you might have on the particular grammar of the Holy Quran from the Promised Messiah alayhi salam. Obviously, this is interwoven in a lot of his work, but any specific books or articles would be appreciated. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah. I guess I should have cited my sources, so I apologize for that. But Masih Islam has talked about Khalq and Amer in the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. So I recommend a treatment of that in there, really influenced me. There is actually some commentary in Islam's response to contemporary issues by Khalif al-Masih Rabi Rahimahullah about Surah Al-Zariyat. He actually does something really cool with it, because later on, when we're talking about diffusion without effort, he says that's how financial contributions should be made from the rich to the poor, without effort. And Surah Zariyat actually has a verse later about that, which is really amazing. So again, it's also policy lessons for how nature works and how human should follow that pattern. So those two come to mind for the specific verses I talked about. But I think the other thing to bring to bear here is the scientific literature. And I find that we scientists really suck at writing. So I tend to like following particularly things outside my field, science journalists, because they're very talented and we need more of them. So, and there are some professors and scientists who have written good books. So thermodynamics and the scattering is really covered by a College of William and Mary professor named Hans Christian von Baer, who's actually a grandson of a Nobel laureate himself. And he wrote a book called Warmth Disperses, Time Passes, A History of Heat. And it is one of the most excellent treatments of thermodynamics for a layperson and somebody who's not as gifted in physics as I am, as others are. For me, I found it very profoundly interesting and good, and it influenced my study of these verses. He talks about the heat cycle and Carnot engines and the Big Bang, all in very lucid prose. I also have other ones too, so if you go to my website at UTEP, University of Texas, El Paso, feel free to email me, amkhan2@utep.edu. I'll be happy to give you some more. These are the ones off the top of my head, Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Dr. Amtur Rahman Ahmed. I have a comment for Dr. Hanna Zafar Sahiba. Her speech, when she started it, this verse that she gave jumped into my mind. And suddenly I thought an incident. I was working as a medical director in Alameda County, and we have directors meeting, and all the directors were asked by our super director that what is your process of quality improvement? What would you do with your teams? So they all said different things. When he came to me, I said that I remember this verse. So I said, I will take a consultation from them, and then when I have taken all the consultation, I'll make my decision, and then once I have made my decision, I will trust in God. And he just jumped up and he said, where did you get that from? So I said, Holy Quran, chapter 3, verse 160. So they were all amazed, and I was so proud that our education is so different from the other world where directors and leaders, they can just make a decision first and then give it to the team to follow it, whether they like it or not. Jazakallah. Jazakallah, Dr. Hanna.
Assalamu alaikum. This question is for Dr. Aisha Siddiqui. I was just wondering, a friend of mine had disclosed that she has no fingerprints. So I wanted to ask, what is this phenomena? And what are some other ways that she can be identified?
First of all, I never heard that there is someone who has no fingerprints. But if it happens, then genetics is the other way we can show the uniqueness.
So there is a possibility to not to be born
I have
with
never
uniqueness.
heard about it.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Yeah.
Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Just
Are there any other questions from the ladies' side?
Assalamu alaikum. This was just a follow-up on the same thing.
I just wanted to check if there were any more questions. Dr. Nusrat Sahiba, are there any other questions from the ladies' side?
I don't think there are any more questions. Jazakallah, we can wrap up this session. We have concluding remarks.
So can we, would the co-chair like to have any concluding remarks?
Yes, respected Dr. Tahira Siddiqa Sahiba will provide some closing remarks to the audience and close up this session. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So this is the second day of this MSLM 26 Medicine, Science, Learning, Innovation and Mentorship Conference 2026. And this is the fourth conference which is taking place. And I am attending this for the first time. I'm very thankful to the organization and especially to the Dr. Shahnaz and Dr. Nusrat Sharif, who personally invited me also and made a lot of effort in communicating and discussing the things with me. These types of conferences, even for a small program, one has to do a lot of effort to organize it and to make it successful. A lot of work is done. And I'm very much surprised and really impressed from the size of this conference, how many programs they have accommodated in it, how many things are going on. 3 days from early 4 o'clock, or today 3:45 in the morning. They start the things from there and end up late night. For the participants, it was 3 days, but for the organizers, it was 4 days and many months. They really worked very hard, and their work and their effort is being shown from the success of this conference, which is, mashallah, going very smoothly. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I hope so that all of you are also enjoying it. One thing which is bothering me is that so much preparation has been done for it, so much effort has been put into it, but the attendance is not as much as should it have been. I don't know how much total number of scientists and doctors and students are present in the America Jamaat, but I think many more are missing it, this event. And you are really the lucky ones, I would say, who have been able to come here and getting all the knowledge and on top of that, the blessings. Ji? Kya keh rahi hain? Achha, Dr. Nusrat Sharif is saying that the attendance is 209 today, and it's almost 50%, 100 men, 100 women. So, where was I? Yes. So I was saying that you, not only that you have gained the knowledge from this conference, but the more important thing, maybe you haven't thought about that, is the blessings you are getting from this. This conference is not a worldly conference. Although we are sharing a worldly knowledge between us, mostly, and with a passing reference of the Quran and Ayat-e-Qurani, but you are sharing with all of us the years of effort and years of knowledge which you have gained, and you have to tell in 13 to 15 minutes. But we are learning from you. The whole maqsad, the aim is to prove the unity of Allah, to prove the truth of Quran Kareem, to prove the sachai and truth of Islam. So this is definitely, in my opinion, this is a conference, this is a meeting which is, it is coming in that category which the Holy Prophet says is the category in which the zikr ilahi is being done. And when I go to the meetings of my lajna, I used to tell them quite often, and I think you also have heard this hadith many times, but I'll narrate it again because I love it. One thing is that it is told by Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that these meetings where zikr ilahi is being done, the angels, they cover it with their feathers, with their wings, and they bless these Allah ki rahmatein nazil ho rahi hoti hain. And then there is also an incident which is told by Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that once the angels were presenting a report of such a meeting to Allah Ta'ala, and they said that such and such were sitting in that meeting, and they were doing the zikr ilahi. They were talking about God. They were talking about Allah. This is the best tasbih you can do, which we have been doing in the last 2 days. So the angels said to Allah Ta'ala that these were the people who were sitting there doing this, and purposefully they came there. But there was one passerby who just sat with them and started listening to them. So it's your choice how much sawab you are going to give him or not. The answer which Allah Ta'ala gave, I'll say it in Urdu and then I'll try to translate in English. कि ये वो लोग हैं कि जिनका हम जलीस भी महरूम नहीं रहता. Ham jalis is person who sits next to them. So these are the people who talk about Allah Ta'ala, who do zikr ilahi. Their company is so blessed that even if a passerby just sits with them, he is not going to be mahroom. He is not going to be, kya mahroom ki English? Deprived of the sawab which they are getting. So you are the lucky ones who are doing this thing. And even the people who will listen from you or even will join you, maybe your families, they will be getting this sawab along with you, inshallah ta'ala. Then to the students and ladies, one or two things which I noticed I would like to mention. First thing is that if you want to be successful in your life, in your studies, in your profession, the principles are the same. You have to do the dua first. You have to work hard. You have to have a direct communication with Allah Ta'ala by praying and doing namaz. Hazur has many times told us that we should be punctual in our namaz. Today in the morning prayer, I don't know how many ladies are sitting in, residing in this hotel, but I was a bit surprised to see that and little bit disappointed also. I don't know about the men, how many men were attending the Fajr namaz, but the ladies I counted 5 or 6 for the tahajjud and 10, including myself, for the Fajr prayer. So I felt sorry for that. I know women are not supposed to be joining the congregational namaz because of our limitations. It's farz on men, but not farz on women. But at the same time, we know that the congregational namaz is very blessed namaz, and its ajr is 27 times more than the ordinary namaz. So if you had made a little bit more effort, so you would have got 27 days swab of Fajr namaz, this with one single namaz, doing in the morning over here. Because I think as the meetings are blessed, these kind of meetings, everything which we are doing here, every moment we are spending here is blessed, and we shouldn't be missing any blessing from there. So next time I hope and pray and wish that you will be paying more attention to this. You should be more punctual about your namaz, especially the Bajamaat namaz, if you get a chance. Otherwise, I know, and sometimes, not sometimes, but I was very thankful to Allah Ta'ala that Allah hasn't made it lazmi first for ladies to do the congregational prayer. It is so hard to do the 5 namaz in congregation. Once I was staying for a slightly longer time in Baitul Fazl at the time of Khalifatul Masih Rabi. I stayed there for about 5 days. And at the end of those 5 days, I was tired, so much, exhausted, running after every namaz. So it's not easy. So it's a blessing of Allah that Allah Ta'ala has not made it a first for ladies, but whenever you get a chance, and especially of these kind of occasions, because these are blessed occasions. Then next thing is that for your success, after prayer, after namaz and dua, the direct contact with Khalifa of the waqt is a very important thing. And actually, this is the extra benefit which we Ahmadis have. Intelligent people are not less in the number, less in the world. And other Americans, I think they would have, though they are also very intelligent people and studious and hardworking people and professional people. They are of similar mindset everywhere. They are focused on your job, they are focused on their studies, they are focused for the success. So the extra benefit, the extra edge which we get on them is only by the dua from the Khalifa Waqt. This is, I am saying from the real core of my heart, from my own experience, that this is the thing which give us an edge on them. When I was in final year, am I taking too much time? Dr. Shanaz said, speak as long as you are. I don't know, but I'll finish it in 2-3 minutes. So, when I stood first in the final year, I was standing in the canteen of my college, and another MD student, she was in 4th year, she just rushed to me and said, without saying anything else, "Aapke top karne ka raaz?" And honest to God, without thinking, the automatic answer which came out of my mind was, "Hazur ko khat likhna." And that was the fact. After every paper, I used to write a 10 paisa card because I didn't have the time of finding a paper and envelope and write a long letter. मैंने वो काफ़ी सारे कार्ड लेके रखे हुए थे. So on a 10 paisa card, I used to write to Hazur that I have done this paper, and it was like this, and next paper is after 2 days or 1 day. So that is my honest and humble advice to you, that if you want to be successful in life, always have a very direct contact with Hazur. And don't think that Hazur doesn't give importance to your letters. For that also, I'll tell you one personal experience of mine. After our marriage, Hassab, we were in Islamabad. And after Isha prayer, Hassab was in his office and he was checking the dark letters of the Jamaat. And he asked me to come and sit with him in his office. And we started talking about something I don't remember exactly. And suddenly he stopped me. तुमने मुझे बातों में लगा दिया, मैं तो इस वक्त इनके लिए दुआ करता होता हूँ. He was checking the files of the students. And then he just asked me to keep quiet, and he started seeing that letters again. So Khulafa, they become very happy. They really enjoy your successes. They love you as their own children. And whenever you write to them, you don't know, they know you. So, and of course, you get the prayers from them. So may Allah enable you to become the true Ahmadi and fulfill the goal of every Ahmadi, that we have to establish the Tawheed of Khuda Ta'ala in this world and the Sachai of the Islam and Qur'an. I had two Hawala Jat from Hazrat Masih Islam and Hazur, but I think now I will just read this little Hawala from the Khalifatul Masih Khamis and leave one from the Hazrat Masih Maud Islam, although it is very nice. But I got it from Aina Kamalat Islam, and that is, when I was reading it, I literally wanted to recommend to all of you that English translation has been published last year, and it's a so beautiful, pretty work, blue-colored title, and the pages are very good. Printing is so good. You will enjoy reading it, and it's a Kamal ki kitab. So read it yourself. So I'll just read the concluding remarks of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih Khami Sayyid al-Tala bin Nasir al-Aziz from October 24 in the Ahmadiyya Muslim Medical Association, international one in Islamabad, UK. Hazur said, may it be that in the coming months and years ahead, you are able to demonstrate a profound and extraordinary increase in your efforts to fulfill the objectives for which the Ahmadiyya Muslim Medical Association was established. Never forget that your skills, knowledge, success, and experience are all gifts from Allah and will only be worthy of value in His eyes when utilized with selflessness for the sake of serving His creation. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. May Allah the Almighty enable you to not only develop new ideas and schemes to serve humanity, but also, more importantly, to fulfill them. May you serve those in need with passion, empathy, tenderness, and compassion. May you serve Allah's creation with devotion, purely to gain His pleasure and blessings in the knowledge that whatever blessings Allah has bestowed upon you should be utilized in the service of others. May all of you prove to be faithful servants of humanity. Ameen and Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Alhamdulillah, by the grace of God, we have reached the end of the session of the science, Quran and science session. This is the 13th year they've been doing that. And first of all, I would like to thank Sister Tahira Siddiqa Sahiba for her invaluable observations and advice and her prayers. May Allah bless her abundantly. I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers for arranging this symposium. To all of you who attended the session and are sitting here, for your patience and for listening carefully, and the speakers for their invaluable efforts and the generous sharing of their knowledge with us. As I had said earlier in the day, we are reminded by the Holy Qur'an and modern science that guides us towards one truth. And that one truth is the Tawheed, oneness of God, the unity of God. And the aspect of that creation that we see all around us that reminds us of God and reminds us of His unity is the precision that we see, the order that we see, and the wisdom throughout the universe. So we are living in the times and we are a witness to this unfolding of a divine design and plan from Allah, that from a fragmented knowledge to the emerging of AI today, to this unified wisdom of AI that we see today. From Hazrat Adam alayhi salam to the perfect man, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and reflected today by the promised Messiah alayhi salam, and ultimately the goal being to return to the worship of one God. So the take-home message from the conference for all of us should be that we build a relationship with Allah, that we recognize the unity of Allah, that we recognize our total dependence on Allah. So what I'm talking about is providence and servitude. And Allah is always doing His part. We always lack on our aspect. And when we read Quran, the Holy Quran, and we look into and think about science, we realize that we are at default. So we must endeavor to become the true servants of Allah. Allah calls them Abd. And the true sign of Abd is that you are always aware that you are responsible, you are morally grounded, and that you are deeply reliant on Allah. So these are the traits of a true Abd. And what supports this, the promised Messiah, alayhi salam, and he says, ittiqa. Ittiqa is a forced effort. You must force yourself to do these things, even though you may not feel like. And this leads us to the definition of taqwa. Now, taqwa is very difficult to define in English language because taqwa has various aspects to it. So one of the definitions of taqwa is that you are constantly vigilant over your thoughts, over your words, and over your deeds. It's a very comprehensive, taqwa is a very comprehensive word. And this is what the requirement calls for. So the question arises, we live here, we are going to build a relationship with Allah. How are we going to do that? Yes, I told you about the traits. But Allah in His wisdom has developed for us a spiritual technology called Salat. Salat is that technology that rewires your mind and it constantly helps the mind contact with the heart and thinking of Allah. And it leads you to a phase where you are constantly aware of the presence of Allah. So that being aware of Allah becomes your default state. The promised Messiah alayhi salam, in his writings calls this, he says, I've lost my thought here. So promised Messiah alayhi salam in his writings called this Dast Bakar Dil Bayar. That is, although your hands may be busy in work, but your heart should always be thinking of your beloved. So my prayer is that as we leave here today, as we leave this symposium, that we do not leave here with more than having shared ideas with each other, listen to each other. I hope it inspires us to the constant remembrance of Allah and to transform ourselves to pursuit and knowledge and to a kind of pursuit and knowledge that in itself becomes a worship of Allah. So, and I hope that we take from here does not stay within these four walls, and that whatever we learn and how we interact with each other, how we teach each other, and how we work with other people, that we do that for the pleasure of Allah and in service to humanity. So may Allah bless us all, and I'd request all of you to join me in silent prayers. Ameen. Allahumma ameen.